There is a specific kind of silence that exists in the most remote corners of the planet. It is the silence of the Australian outback, the desolate dunes of the Sahara, or the frozen tundras of Siberia. In these places, the margin for error isn't measured in money or time. It is measured in survival. If you are stranded there, the consequences are final. And if you look closely at the vehicles traversing these unforgiving landscapes, whether they are driven by humanitarian aid workers, geological surveyors, or even insurgent forces, you will notice a singular, recurring silhouette. It is big, it is boxy, and it is almost always a Toyota Land Cruiser. This ubiquity is not an accident of marketing. It is not because the vehicle has the best leather seats or the fastest 0-60 time. It is because, for over 70 years, this specific machine has been built with a philosophy that defies the modern logic of manufacturing. In a world designed for planned obsolescence, where products are engineered to fail the moment a warranty expires, the Land Cruiser stands as a solitary, stubborn monument to permanence. It is a vehicle built on the economics of over-engineering, a concept that, on paper, should have bankrupted Toyota decades ago, but instead created the strongest automotive reputation in history. To understand why this vehicle commands such a cult-like reverence, and why used models often appreciate in value rather than depreciate, we have to look beneath the sheet metal. We have to look at the engineering standard, known internally at Toyota as the 25-year rule. While most modern crossovers are designed with a service life of perhaps 10 to 12 years before the plastic degrades and the electronics fail, the Land Cruiser is engineered to survive 25 years of continuous abuse in the harshest environments known to man. This isn't just a tagline. It dictates the physical reality of the machine. It means that when engineers are selecting the thickness of the steel for the frame, they don't choose the gauge that is good enough. They choose the gauge that ensures structural integrity even after decades of corrosion. It means that the air intake is positioned higher to account for river crossings that would drown a standard SUV. It means that the buttons on the dashboard are oversized and spaced far apart, not for aesthetic reasons, but so they can be operated by a driver wearing thick, heavy work gloves in sub-zero temperatures. There is a palpable weight to these decisions. When you shut the door of a Land Cruiser, the sound is distinct. It is a heavy, metallic thud that feels like closing the door of a bank vault. That sound is the acoustic signature of wasted money, at least, from a traditional accountant's perspective. You see, efficient manufacturing is usually about shaving pennies. If you can make a bolt 10% lighter and cheaper, you do it. Over millions of cars, that saves millions of dollars. But the Land Cruiser engineering team has historically operated with a different mandate. They aren't trying to save pennies. They are trying to save lives. This brings us to the fascinating economic paradox of the vehicle. By refusing to cut corners, Toyota created a product that is incredibly expensive to build. The profit margins on a Land Cruiser have notoriously been thinner than on their mass market sedans because the raw material cost is so high. However, this creates a secondary economy that is entirely unique because the vehicle effectively doesn't die. It holds its value in a way that defies market gravity. You can buy a brand new luxury German SUV for 6 figures, and in 5 years, it will be worth a fraction of that price because the market knows it is about to become a maintenance nightmare. A Land Cruiser, however, is barely broken in at 100,000 miles. This retention of value changes the calculus of ownership. It transforms the vehicle from a consumer good into an asset. People justify the high entry price because they know that when they sell it 10 years later, they will get a significant portion of their money back. It is one of the few vehicles where the cost of ownership is kept low, not by being cheap to buy, but by being impossible to kill. It creates a loyalty loop that most brands can only dream of. Once someone trusts their life to a Land Cruiser, they rarely switch to anything else, but the over-engineering goes deeper than just thick steel. It is woven into the human element of production. The engines in the flagship models are not just assembled by robots. They are inspected by Takumi Masters artisans with decades of experience who can detect imperfections that computers miss. These inspectors use their hands to feel the surface of the engine block, ensuring the finish is perfect to a microscopic degree. This level of obsession is usually reserved for supercars like Ferraris or Rolls-Royces, vehicles that live in climate-controlled garages. Toyota applies it to a truck destined to be covered in mud and shot at in conflict zones. There is a famous saying in the peaceat Australian bush, if you want to go into the outback, take a Land Rover. If you want to come back, take a Land Cruiser. This rivalry highlights the difference between capability and reliability. Many vehicles are capable. They can climb steep rocks and wade through deep water. But reliability is the ability to do that same task 1,000 times in a row without a single failure. The Land Cruiser prioritizes reliability over innovation. It is often criticized for having outdated technology, for using old engines and ancient infotainment systems. But this, too, is a calculated decision. New technology is unproven. New sensors fail. Complex air suspension systems leak. By sticking to older, simpler, and more robust technologies, Toyota minimizes the points of failure. They wait until a technology is undeniably bulletproof before they allow it near the Land Cruiser. This frustrates the tech-obsessed consumer, but it comforts the person crossing the Gobi Desert. They don't want a touchscreen that controls the transmission. They want a mechanical lever that will work even if the electrical system is fried. This philosophy creates a strange tension in the modern world. We live in an era of strict emissions regulations and safety mandates that demand crumple zones and fuel efficiency. The Land Cruiser is a dinosaur in this environment. It is heavy, it is thirsty, and it is unapologetically mechanical. Every new generation faces the existential threat of being watered down. When the V8 engines were replaced with turbocharged V6 South, purists panicked. They feared that the soul of the machine was finally being sacrificed on the altar of environmental compliance. Yet somehow, the engineers managed to adapt without They over-engineer the new systems to match the durability of the old ones. They test the turbochargers to breaking points that no normal driver will ever reach. They understand that the badge on the grille is a promise. It is a promise that says, this vehicle will get you home. The cultural impact of this engineering is profound. You see the white Land Cruiser with the UN letters on the door, and it signals hope and aid. You see a convoy of black ones, and it signals power and authority. It has become the vehicle of choice for both the peacekeeper and the warlord, the suburban mother and the outback rancher. It transcends social class because reliability is a universal currency. A billionaire and a field researcher might drive the same car, not for status, but for the shared confidence that the machine will simply work. However, the economics of over-engineering are becoming harder to sustain, as raw materials become more expensive and the pressure to electrify intensifies. The business case for a 3-ton steel beast becomes harder to make. Other manufacturers have long since abandoned this segment, moving toward unibody crossovers that look rugged but are fragile underneath. Toyota stands alone on this hill, defending a way of making things that feels increasingly archaic. It forces us to ask a difficult question about the things we buy and the society we have built. We have become accustomed to We accept that our phones will slow down in 2 years, that our appliances will break in 5, and that our clothes will tear after a season. We call this progress. But the Land Cruiser suggests that progress might actually look like permanence. It suggests that the most sustainable product isn't the one made of recycled plastic that you have to replace 3 times a decade, but the one you build once, build heavy, and keep forever. There is a quiet dignity in over-engineering. It is an act of respect toward the user. It acknowledges that the person behind the wheel might face challenges that the engineer in the office can't predict, and it prepares the machine for those unknowns. It is a rejection of the minimum viable product mindset that plagues modern industry. It is the maximum viable product. As we look at the future of transportation, with self-driving pods and electric skateboards, the Land Cruiser feels like an anchor to a different reality. It is a reminder of a time when we built things to conquer the earth, not just to commute across it. It represents a bond between man and machine that is forged in difficulty and cemented in trust. So, the next time you see one of these giants on the road, don't just look at it as an SUV, look at it as a rolling bank vault, a masterclass in resistance against decay. In a world that is constantly racing toward the new, the cheap, and the disposable, the Toyota Land Cruiser remains standing, not because it is the fastest or the most advanced, but simply because it was built to be the last thing left running when everything else has stopped.